Good afternoon, Glasgow. Don't be fooled by my accent. I've actually lived in Brighton for the last 30 years, which is as far away from Scotland as you can get without being wet. And Graham Greene famously described Brighton as a town that looks as though it's been up all night helping the police with their inquiries. And I actually don't know what that means, but I think it's better applied to Glasgow, actually. I think you got the wrong city there. In any case, I'm going to make a rather bold claim, which you can see behind me here, which is that we've had more pedagogic change in the last 10 years than in the last 1,000 years. And my first piece of evidence is TED. TED doesn't work because of you guys in this live room, in this audience. TED works because there are between 1 billion and 1.5 billion people on the internet who have access to TED Talks. And TED Talks went online in 2006, and tens of millions of people have seen them. This is a massive leap in scalability in pedagogy, and illustrative of what I'm about to speak of. This is an illustration from Manuscript about 1340. I want you to look at the guy up in the top left-hand corner here, the lecturer, and we still call them lecturers. Is that what they do? They stand and just talk to people? But if you look very carefully at this slide, 1340, University of Bologna, one of the very first educational institutions, at the boy in the bottom right-hand corner here, who is, of course, fast asleep, and I'm sure you've been in lectures where you've had pains in your chest with boredom. If you look at the guy in the green thing up the back there, I think he's on his BlackBerry. In fact, if you look at almost everybody on the screen, nobody's paying any attention. And you can walk into a modern university which delivers slabs of lectures week on week and witness this any day of the week. You could go into the University of Glasgow and witness it tomorrow. Now, if I were a lecturer, imagine the stupidity, the pedagogic stupidity of this. Imagine if I were a lecturer, or a novelist, or a journalist. Would a novelist or a journalist say, I'm going to read my novel to you, I'm only going to read it once. I'm not going to put it in a book, you better take notes, by the way. Would a journalist say, I'm going to write an article, I'm only going to read it to you once? Because that's what modern educational pedagogic theory in higher education is based upon. It's still based upon the lecture. And there is nothing in the psychology of learning that suggests you should be sitting for an hour, 3 or 4, 5, 6, 7 times a week to learn. Everything in the psychology of learning suggests that we should be much more proactive and sophisticated pedagogically. Now, in the last 10 years, we've had a whole raft of things on top of TED here. The rise in social media. We have, of course, had this explosion in open source that's led to open educational resources. An absolute boon in terms of Wikipedia, published here in Edinburgh originally, completely destroyed by Jimmy Wales. A whole raft of things that has given us access to content and learning. And when we look at learners, as opposed to people who teach, look at their behavior, because the world has changed dramatically in the last decade. And the base assumption here is a very simple word, and that's scale. Now, in the last 1,000 years, we had this massive boost in the 15th century when Gutenberg invented the printing press, but books are only scalable in terms of being replicable. The real scalability in education comes with the internet because it gives us a world of digital replication for free. A world of digital abundance where some aspects of learning content are available for anyone, anywhere, at any time. It absolutely frees us from the tyranny of time and location. Far many more people will watch these TED Talks at their own time, in their own home, than will ever turn up and sit on a seat to watch them. And that's the trick. Freeing education from a place, from a specific time. Now, it's not as if this is a new message here. We have in this country, in fact, we pioneered this. The Open University has 250,000 students, none of them on a campus. How does it work? The smart use of technology. 1969, it didn't come from within higher education, it came from Harold Wilson and a civil servant, it came from outside the system. That's where the innovation came from. Why hasn't that model been picked up by other universities? Because they didn't have to. Why are they still stuck in a primitive pedagogic mode where they deliver 3 lectures a week and most of the academics actually want to get out of teaching to concentrate on research? But in the last 10 years, the research, and I want to talk about research here because Mr. Mazur here, who teaches physics at Harvard, who teaches physics alongside several Nobel Prize-winning physicists, said something very interesting when he came across his physics students, which is the Nobel Prize-winning teachers, when they talk about education, resort to anecdote. It's like being in a dinner party all of a sudden. And I'm sure you've experienced this when people talk about education. They very quickly default to anecdote and what it's like for their kids in their school. But of course, the plural of anecdote is not data. And he's a physicist, and he spent the last 10 years looking at dispensing with lectures, improving with lectures, so that his students at Harvard, who are smart kids, can learn better. And indeed, that's what he has achieved by stopping lectures. By stopping them every 5 minutes, asking natural language questions in physics and getting the students to adopt peer learning techniques, active learning techniques that really do teach those kids physics. And he's had a dogleg in terms of his results. Last year, I spent a good deal of my time in the Middle East. I was in Syria just a week before everything kicked off there. I've been in Egypt a couple of times, the Gulf states. And I was doing some research there on social media. Now, if, as is clearly the case, the internet and social media can lead young people to change their tyrannical and corrupt governments, can we really say that social media will have no role in education? How do you think those kids in Tahrir Square learnt to avoid tear gas by using Pepsi Cola? How do you think those revolutions arose? First through blogging, then through Facebook, then through Twitter, then through YouTube, and the ubiquity of mobile devices. We'd be fools to ignore the pedagogic lessons that are right in front of our eyes, politically and in terms of education. And in terms of this peer learning technique, here in the University of Glasgow, interestingly, they've been pioneering some of this stuff. When you really get peer learning techniques going, remember that kids don't see teachers as part of their peer group, neither do students. They see the peer group as people of their own age. Once you get these tools, and some of these are open source tools, you really can accelerate the pedagogy within your institution. Now, I'm going to stick to lectures for a little bit and then move on a little bit, but as I say, it is dumb not to record lectures, which is why TED records things in videos, because you have to give people a second bite of the cherry. Everything in the psychology of learning suggests that repeated access to content matters. You have learned nothing without repeated access and repeated practice. You learn absolutely nothing because Ebbinghaus in 1885 showed that your skills and knowledge decay really rapidly on a single event exposure. You will forget almost everything I'm telling you today within 30 minutes. In 3 months, almost everything will be gone. Unless you go back and look at the video, take notes, use reinforcement techniques. And in fact, in the University of Eindhoven, great paper this with a great title, Recording Can Improve a Bad Lecture. How can that be? Well, if you've ever had to write a 1-hour lecture, thankfully TEDTalks are a lot shorter, you'll know that you'll pad it out. You'll know you'll shove stuff in at the beginning. You'll know it'll last about 20 minutes and you'll pad it out to an hour. Smart students know this. So when you look at recorded lectures, you look at the empirical evidence, they watch about 75% of the lecture and get rid of the tangential stuff, the introductions, the stuff they don't actually need. Okay? Now, there's been a revolution in content here as well. This is why things are so exciting in terms of this revolution at the moment. We have Salman Khan in the US, who has put 2,000 odd videos up, 2,800 videos under a Creative Commons license on the internet. Salman, like me, started teaching maths using Skype, eventually got stuff laid down in video. But look at the number at the bottom here. If you're a teacher or an academic, you'll be lucky to hit 2,000 or 3,000 students in a 30-year career. Salman has hit 110 million in just a few years. That's scalability. And if you want to look at his video on the size of the sun, then look at the brilliant teaching that can be achieved. You don't see Salman on this video, but he does say that, imagine you fire a bullet round the sun from a rifle, how long will that bullet take to go around the sun? Brilliant analogy. And the answer is 6 months. This thing is huge. Brilliant teaching, simply recorded, Many of them just a few minutes long, exactly what the students need. And what he's done is he's flipped the classroom. He says, and he's right, that kids should not be given difficult problems as homework. They should be doing the exposition at home. And teachers in the classroom should be giving them formative feedback. Teachers should be teaching, not standing and talking at students. Absolutely right. Flip the classroom. This is Sebastian Thrun, who's one of the top software engineers in Google, teaches at Stanford, high-end AI courses. He was teaching classes of 200 students a pop when he decided to put his AI course online. It goes online. How many students does he have? 160,000. 160,000 people take the course because it has sophisticated peer learning techniques, good formative assessment, and off he goes. He's flipped to lecture. In other words, when you see his lectures, they're online. You don't see Sebastian, you see the content, you focus on the content, then you go into very sophisticated techniques in terms of formative assessment. Adaptive learning, we will, over the next 5 years, see a massive rise in very sophisticated back-end software. E-learning is mostly front-end stuff at the moment. You'll see sophisticated algorithms, AI techniques coming into play, which are personalized, as Ken Robinson said, to your learning, what you've learned before, where you're going. It will be like a massively sophisticated sat-nav in terms of learning. You'll know where you've come from, where you're going, and if you go off-road, it will get you back on track again. And there's a company in Edinburgh called Cogbooks who are, as we speak, developing this software. Social media. The numbers are absolutely phenomenal here. You know, we could be looking at getting on for 2 billion people on the internet. These are huge numbers. And when it comes to the sharing of social media, the sharing of media itself, the numbers are phenomenal. Way beyond anything a current education establishment can deliver. And if you look at what social media actually is, and keep it simple for a minute. I like this one. I just ripped it off a week ago or so. Social media explained. Twitter, I need to pee. Facebook, I peed. Foursquare, this is where I pee. Quora, why am I peeing? YouTube, look at this pee. LinkedIn, I'm good at peeing. That's about everything you need to know about peeing, guys, you know? And this is what kids do, you know, when they go into the internet. You know, when I had to repair the window in my car recently, I didn't go to the garage. I found a YouTube video from a guy in Northampton called Jim. I've never met Jim, and it allowed me to fix the window in my car. I was speaking to somebody else about this recently. He went into the Honda garage, where the mechanic looked up YouTube to repair the thing on his car. The world has changed, guys. And of course, in our schools and colleges and universities, the students are already doing this. Don't imagine for 1 minute that students aren't on Facebook saying, when's this assignment got to go in? Can you help me with this question? They do it anyway. And if you want to get to students, you have to go there. You have to go to the place students hang out if you're going to participate in this medium. And the e-assessment. The horrific process. I have twin boys who have just turned 18. The horrific process they've gone through in the last 18 years of being, you may as well wire them up to some perpetual testing machine. It's done no one any good. This obsession, this filtering. And if you look at a typical assessment question, I quite like this question, find X, Pythagoras' theorem, okay? But I love the way this kid replied to this question. Now, I've run businesses all my life. Believe me, I want to know who this kid is. I don't care about the guys who know Pythagoras' theorem. This guy shows humor, innovation, smart thinking. I want them in my company. But does the assessment system test this at all? No. This is a 0 mark here. This is a red pen mark. But what we will see soon are assessment systems that are free from the institutions that hold you to ransom. Remember, I've got twin boys, £9,000 a year. For 3 years, plus lost income, it's about 70 grand a year. I've got 2 of them. This is an expensive business education. Shouldn't we be looking at making it cheaper? Should educational institutions be closing down to the agricultural calendar? Should we be building lecture halls that have an occupancy rate of 20 and 30% a year? Or should we be looking at alternative models? This is Douglas Adams of Hitchhiker's fame. I like this quote. Everything that's already in the world when you're born is just normal. Anything that gets invented between then and before you turn 30 is incredibly exciting and creative, and with any luck, you can make a career out of it, which is what I've done. Anything invented after you're 30 is against the natural order of things and the beginning of the end of civilization as we know it, until it's been around for about 10 years when it gradually turns out to be all right, really. And this is what's happening. We're actually discovering that this stuff is not only all right, really, it's really rather good. And of course, over the last decade or so, the influence of these people has been phenomenal. My argument is that pedagogic change is not coming from academic institutions or education departments within academic institutions or teachers. Pedagogic change is coming from technology, first through search, open source, the wonders of Wikipedia. We have Tim Berners-Lee, who gave us the gift of the World Wide Web. Jeff Bezos. Anybody never used Amazon here? It's okay if you haven't. Okay, isn't it great tearing open that cardboard box? Even books have been revolutionized by him. Jimmy Wales, who I think should get a Nobel Prize for creating Wikipedia, which was abhorred by academics for the first few years when it was launched. The late, great Steve Jobs, the whole podcasting, media sharing, iTunes thing, Torvalds and open source, open educational resources, which holds massive promise in terms of access, especially to people in the developing world. And of course, the most boring billionaire on the planet, Mark Zuckerberg, again, giving us Facebook and social media, the guys from Google, the guys from YouTube, and the guys from Twitter. These are the people who are changing pedagogy for the good, because they're giving us tools which are scalable, resources which almost everyone in the planet almost has or will have access to, and they've changed the education world forever. This is a revolution that is already in progress. So the argument about evolution and revolution is a bit passé, because if you ask a basic question, does technology shape education? That is empirically true. It does. It's only a matter of degree. And my argument is you can ignore it, but resistance is futile. Thanks very much for listening.